Hello, this is the Watchdog, and welcome back to Fun with Watches. If watches weren't fun, you'd only need one. Today we're going to do a comparison video. We have two homages to the Tudor Pelagos 39, one from Octopus and the other one from IXDAO. And we're going to see which one is the best, and we're going to see which one I'm going to keep, because I can only afford to keep one. Let's start out with the wrist check. Since I'm doing titanium watches, I'm wearing my titanium Invicta 0420, and Grove is wearing my titanium Fossil LE 1100. I asked Grogu if he thought Tudor was a poor man's Rolex. He said he didn't care about a poor man's Rolex, he just wants a poor boy sandwich. All right, let's look at the watches. I have them in their original containers. Both containers, I would say, are hard, but this is a much harder plastic, much thicker, where this, but both cases will do a perfectly good job of protecting your watch. This one's a zipper, and this one has a little pouch to keep your paperwork and also your signed warranty card. Yes, you heard that right, signed. This one, however, doesn't have a little pouch, and the warranty card is this little coaster here. So that's kind of different. Here's both of the watches. Let's start with the price. The Octopus on the left, at the time of this video, cost $275. And the IXDAO on the right cost $257. Now, when I went to the store where I bought this Octopus, they were all out of the bracelet version. So I had to find it at a different store. So I don't know if you order it from a different store if you're going to get the signed warranty card or not. But I definitely recommend the titanium bracelet over the leather strap. So if you want this Octopus, get the bracelet, even if you have to get it from a different store. Okay, then let's go with the dimensions here. The Octopus on the left here has a 39mm bezel, but the IXDAO has a 39.9mm bezel. And both bezels kind of overhang the case just a little bit. So basically, the IXDAO has a 39mm case, but the Octopus only has a 38. And if you look at the dimensions of a real Tudor Pelagos 39, the IXDAO is a lot closer to the dimensions. The lug to lug is 1mm more than the Octopus. They're about the same thickness each, so that's not an issue. And the IXDAO has 21mm lugs, where the Octopus has 20. And a real Tudor Pelagos has 21mm. So the IXDAO is definitely closer to the real Tudor. Then let's look at the bezels. Both have a ceramic insert and both are flat. I would say the blue on the Octopus is just a little bit a lighter shade than the IXDAO, but not very much. The bezels are really close to each other. They look a lot alike. The markers and the numbers, they both have the same font. But when it comes to the action, the Octopus here is a 120 click. And it's got really good clicks. They're nice and solid, no back play. So good action, but it's 120. A real Pelagos is a 60 click. Then the IXDAO here, like a real Pelagos, is a 60 click. And the action is really good on the IXDAO also. No back play, everything lines up. So when it comes to the bezels, they both have great action, but this is a 120 click and this is a 60. Okay, now let's look at the dials. The Octopus dial is a flat blue, and the blue matches the bezel. The IXDAO is a sunburst blue, and the blue is darker than the bezel. Personally, I much prefer the Octopus. I think the dial matching the bezel is just a better look to me. And I like the fact that it's flat. A real Pelagos is going to be flat and not have a sunburst effect. But the IXDAO, it's a nice looking dial. It's a really good sunburst effect. You can barely see it. And it's a really deep blue. So it's nice looking. It just doesn't look like anything Tudor would do if they ever come out with the blue 39. Then when it comes to the writing, we got the Octopus name and logo and Kraken up top. And then we have the IXDAO name and logo. And it says timeless underneath IXDAO. Then on the bottom, the Octopus just gives the depth rating in automatic, 200 meters. And the IXDAO has the little smile that Tudor used to do on their watches, but they don't do anymore. And so it says milli diver, then gives the depth rating. Then it says self-winding. And the depth rating, though, even though they're both red, is so much easier to read on the Octopus because of the shade and the fact that the dial is lighter. Then we have the indices, and they're both highly loomed, and they're very similar, and they look like a true Pelagos indice. And then we have the hands, and that's the same thing. Now, if you look, though, the base of the hands that aren't loomed, the shade matches the dial on the Octopus, and the shade does not match on the IXDAO. So that whole kind of illusion as they're floating in midair doesn't work on the IXDAO because of the color difference. And neither one has a date, and neither does a Tudor Pelagos 39, although they do have dates on the Pelagos 42s. And these both have PT 5000 movements, which have dates, so they both have a ghost date. Then when it comes to the crown, both are signed with their logos. There's the Octopus logo, which is the 8 hands in a circle. And then here's the IXDAO logo, which looks a lot very similar to a Tudor rose, but not quite. But when it comes to the crown action, I definitely give it to the IXDAO. The IXDAO has a nice pop when you unscrew it, and then when you go to screw it back down, the threads catch right away and you don't feel a lot of resistance. The Octopus, on the other hand, doesn't have a nice pop when you unscrew it, and then when you go to screw it back down, you feel a lot of thread resistance. You always get this little fear that you might strip it, which would be horrible. So the crown thread action, I definitely give it to the IXDAO. And then we have the crystals. Both are sapphire, both have AR coating, but look at the difference though. The Octopus on the left, the AR coating is so much better. There's a lot less reflection, and you can see the dial so much better. I think a lot of it has to do, though, with the fact that the IXDAO has a sunburst dial, which is just shinier. But I think the crystal goes to the Octopus. And then we have the case. The case, they're very similar in shape and design. And as I said before, the dimensions, the IXDAO is a slightly bigger and more true to Pelagos. But when it comes to the finish, I like the Octopus finish better. I think it's just the brushing just seems to be a little bit smoother, and the colors are just a little bit lighter. The Octopus, when I first unboxed it, I had to weigh it just to make sure it was titanium because the finish was so good. And the IXDAO, no, the IXDAO has great finish. It's just not as good as the Octopus. Then the case backs, they both have coin edge case backs. Of course, so you need a coin edge tool to remove them. But the Octopus has no writing at all. And the IXDAO though has the writing on the case back, which is kind of what Tudor would do. So the IXDAO, the case back looks a little bit more Tudor-like, where the Octopus looks a little bit more Rolex-like. Then underneath the case backs, both watches have the PT 5000 movement. And if you want to spend more money, you can get a Sellita SW200. Or if you want to spend even more, you can get the ETA. The PT 5000 is a Chinese clone of the ETA 2824. It's a 4 hertz movement that ticks 8 times a second. And I set these watches yesterday, and they're both going identical. So they must be the same, going to be the same accuracy. So I'm not going to compare them on the time grapher. Although I know when I did do the IXDAO review recently, it was very accurate. So both of these are probably doing just great. The PT 5000 seems to be the go-to movement if you want a Chinese movement that's a 4 hertz. Both watches have oyster-style bracelets with solid inverted end links. And if you look at the Octopus, though, it seems to have a bigger gap between the end links. Both watches have fully articulating links too, which is great. And they both have screw pins. But I would say that the heads on the IXDAO are a little bit bigger than the heads on the Octopus. So I had an easier time finding a screwdriver to adjust the IXDAO bracelet. But they're both ones are fine. And I've had no issues of the screw pins coming out. And I've been wearing both of these a lot, so that's good. And they both have milled clasps. The clasp on the IXDAO, though, is a lot longer than the clasp on the Octopus. And they both have 3 holes of micro adjust. But if you look at the Octopus, they seem to be a little bit closer together. So you can probably get a better fit on the IXDAO. And also on the IXDAO, I removed 2 links. And the Octopus, I only removed 1. So 7 3/4 is the best you're going to do on the Octopus, where you can probably do 8 inches on the IXDAO. One of my viewers, Johann, he ordered one of these Octopuses, and he asked for some extra links, and he got them. So if you have a bigger wrist than 7 3/4, just hopefully you can ask for some extra links when you order it. But yeah, they're both nice clasps. They're simple and they do the job. I just think the IXDAO looks a little bit nicer. Here's the Octopus on my 7.5 inch wrist. Looks nice, wears nice, really light. You can barely tell it's on. And here's the IXDAO on my 7.5 inch wrist. Looks nice, wears nice. So light, you can barely tell it's on. Here we are in the lume room. When I reviewed both of these watches, they both had excellent lume with fully lume bezels. So I really didn't know which one had the better, so let's find out. As we speed up the time, both watches are glowing like a torch. No matter which watch you choose, you're going to be happy with the lume. As time goes by, the bezel numbers on both watches are fading fairly even and the weakest thing on both watches. But when it comes to the indices, the IXDAO is clearly better. The hands are still about even as well as the bezel markers. But I have to give the victory to the IXDAO due to the better index lume. What do I like better about the Octopus? Well, I think it has better packaging, especially because you have the little pouch for your paperwork and your signed warranty card. And once again, the warranty card is signed, unlike the IXDAO, which was not. I like the color. I like the fact that the dial matches the bezel, and I just think the color is a little bit more true to what Tudor would release if they ever come out with a blue 39. I like the dial. I like the fact that you can read the red better. And I like the fact that it's a flat dial and not a sunburst. I like the crystal. I think it has better AR coating than the IXDAO. I think you can see through it a lot better. And I like the finish. I think the finish is a little bit better than the IXDAO. It just seems the brushwork seems to be a little bit smoother. What do I think is better about the IXDAO? Well, I think the crown is better because it has better thread action. And I never feel like I'm going to strip it or anything when I go to screw it back down. I like the dimensions. They're closer to a real Pelagos, and they're just a hair bigger than the Octopus. 39 is a little bit small for me, so the bigger the better. The IXDAO has better lume than the Octopus, although both watches have excellent lume. I think the screw pin heads are a little bit bigger on the IXDAO, so they're a little bit easier to use. I think the clasp is better on the IXDAO. The micro adjusts are a little bit bigger, and so you can better chance of getting the perfect fit. Plus, it just looks a little bit nicer because it's longer. I think the IXDAO is a better bracelet size. I had to remove 2 links where I only had to remove 1 link on the Octopus. And I like the case back better. I just think that writing looks nice. So there it is, a comparison of the 2 watches. So which one am I keeping? Even though the IXDAO checks more boxes, the watches are still so close that I'm going to have to go with the looks department. So the Octopus is my choice due to the color, flat dial, finish, and crystal. It just looks more like a Pelagos. It just looks more Pelagos-like. But the IXDAO is an awesome watch, and I wish I could keep them both, but I'm keeping the Octopus. Well, thank you for watching my comparison of the Octopus Kraken and IXDAO 39 Pelagos homages. And I will be back with another review. Be sure and like and subscribe to my channel. Bye.